Okay guys, we're back with build part number 8 and hope to get this thing finished today. The wing is all done, so really all I like is putting the tail feathers on it and finishing up the bomb bay doors, hooking the servos up to the tail feathers and putting the landing gear on it and then balancing it. So we're almost done. So anyway, we're back to working on the bay doors. I had to think and think. I was going to put a ball link on the end of here and use helicopter linkage, ball link linkages. But I have searched through all my many little boxes of spare parts and stuff, and apparently I have gotten rid of my ball links. I don't have any extras. So rather than wait to order some, I wanted to get this done today. I come up with a new idea. I just took a servo horn, cut off the tips. I drilled out the top hole a little bit larger, drilled a hole in the end of this wooden peg, put the screw in it, then the hole right underneath it, I don't know if you can see it or not, but I drilled that slightly smaller hole and took a piece of control rod, a smaller control rod, and drilled a hole about a ½ inch deep down in there, and I embedded that down in there and glued it in. So, and then I super glued the whole thing, so I don't think there's any way it's going to move. Then what I will do, I made myself some linkage out of some skinny rod. I made some Z-bends on the end of it. The Z-bend will go into the hole on the end of this, and then the other end I haven't cut to length yet because I got to measure and see how much throw I've got to have to open these doors to a 90°. So I might possibly have to take the servo horn and build an extension on it to get enough arm to go the length. I don't know yet, but we'll get to that in here in just a little bit. But anyway, that's how I'm rigging this up. The Z-bend, which will swivel in this, and it will set down in, goes right down in my little groove. Plenty of clearance for the wire, so that should just push that right open and shut. So we'll get on to the next step of it, and we'll be back in a minute. Okay, a little bit more on the bomb hatch doors. I've got my servo tray built. Used a piece of light ply, and then I took, like I did before, I took a piece of the center that I cut out and cut little strips and glued on the back to reinforce for the screws for the servos. Now what I'm going to do, this needs to be removable in case one of my servos ever goes out or I need to take it out for any reason. So what I'm going to do, let me see if I can get this through here. Hang on a minute, get my servo. Okay, I'll mount my servos in it first. I'm going to use quick connects on the end to put the wire up in, and hang on, let me see if I can get that in here. Dadgummit. Okay, sorry, I should have put this on a tripod. Those will, and then I can still get in there with a little short Allen wrench to tighten those. What I'm going to do on this servo tray, I've got little square stock cut. I'm going to glue a piece of this on each side of the fuselage with a groove, so that servo tray will actually slide right down in it. And then on the back side of it here, I'm going to take a piece of square stock and glue across here, and then I'm going to take another light piece of ply and go back to this where I can screw it to this tray right here, and that way I can remove it. I can take these screws out, and then this whole thing will just slide right out. And I'll put 2 screws across there, but we'll come back when I get a little bit more done on that. Okay, I got my servos mounted up. What I did, if you just hook these with a Y harness, then one will go down, the other one will go up. So what you have to do is use 2 channels. I went into my radio and piggybacked my flap channel, gear channel, to the flap channel, and that way I can reverse whichever one is going the wrong direction. I can also sub-trim each individual one and travel adjustment and get each door just right. So got that all mounted up. I put a little piece of flat thin ply and I glued it in place with some little square stock. I glued square stock in here, and of course my rods, I can put them up through the holes here in my quick connects. But now what I can do is slide that right down in there, put 2 screws in that, and it's solid as rock. That way if I need to take it out for any reason, the servo goes out or whatever, I can get it out. And then what I will do to get to these Allen wrenches, I'll take just a regular, I have a whole bag full of little odds and ends. I'll take one of my little regular Allen wrenches and I will cut the short end of it off real short so it will fit between this wall right here, and I can get to that screw to tighten it down on my linkage. So we'll get the linkage hooked up here in a minute and let's see how this thing works. Okay guys, been on this bomb box for a little while now, and finally come up with a solution. The servo arms that I have, even the longest one I had, which are a 1/4 inch longer than this one, are nowhere near long enough to get enough throw to open that door. So what I had to do was make an extension for my servo arm. I'm going to show you how I did that on this other one. I was going to use a mixing stick, one of these little wooden mixing sticks, but I happen to remember I had these. I love my wife for this. Excuse me. She sells on eBay. She sells mostly sewing stuff, but a lot of old things, vintage things, and does real good at it. But in her little travels, when she's out at thrift stores and flea markets and stuff, she finds all kinds of neat stuff and brings them to me. She brought me a whole bag of these little white plastic, I'm dropping something here, these little white plastic strips. They're fairly thin, flexible. She brought them to me to use as mixing sticks in my epoxy, which works good. Well, I happened to get in the drawer to get some of my wooden sticks out, and aha, there was these. I've got the long ones and I've got the little short ones. So I took 2 of those, held them together very carefully, thin CA'd those together really good, and made it real stiff and about the thickness of a servo horn. So then what I did is I took, let me get my glue out right quick. Let's see if I can glue my fingers together again. I've done it 2 or 3 times today. Okay, that little tapered end fits very nicely right on top of a servo horn. So now one thing I did, I took my razor knife on top. There's a little inset here for the screw. I shaved that off so this plastic will lay flat. Alright, I took it and laid it on there. Get it squared up here. Now, I'll get here in a minute. Turn it over this way so I can see the ends of it. I want to get it centered, and I'm going to wick a little CA around that just to hold it while I'm doing other things to it. Now I can let go of it and go all the way around it. Alright, I'm going to glue it down. Now, glue is not enough to hold this by itself. It will eventually crack loose and your servo won't work right. So on top of that, you want to reinforce it a little bit. And what I did is I took my little block of wood, my small drill bit, and I drilled holes. Yep, didn't let my glue dry long enough. Damn it. Hang on a minute. Told you I'd get it on my fingers. I don't know how many times I've been through this today. Alright, we're going to have to let that set just a little bit. Let me let the glue dry and I'll be back in just a minute. Okay, got my glue dry enough. Scrape off the flash that I drilled through. come out the top of my plastic deal. Now, I took a bread tie, or a trash bag, come out of a box of trash bags, held on to the one end of it with a pair of pliers, took my knife and stripped it down to the wire. Then I doubled that wire, and I started, let's see how I did this. Yeah, I started kind of squeeze it together. Started in the first, well, let me do this. Go up this way. Started there and went down through the middle hole. And then I fed the ends of it with a pair of tweezers through the eye where I doubled it over. Get a hold of it here. It's a little tricky. Get them thread through there. And then I can find my needle nose. Took my needle nose and pulled that tight. Then on the bottom. Then I turned right back around, put that back through the middle hole, took my pliers, pulled it tight. I have to do one at a time to get all the slack out of it. Pulled it tight again. Then I took and back through the third hole. My wire cutters. Cut the end off. Now keep your two ends, you're going to use those. And I laid that down flat on there, and that's all wired together, plus glued. Then I took a piece of heat shrink, put the heat shrink over that. Get my gun right quick. Okay, now we've got that end done. We're going to take this one. This is the two pieces I had left over. I'm going to kind of twist them up a little bit. Don't have to be much. Now, I'm going to go through the first hole and then the second hole. I don't really need the middle one. Pull it up through there enough with your needle nose. Then I'm going to twist that with my pliers, tighten it up pretty good. Take my cutters and just cut it off. Take my needle nose and squish that down flat. And I have a little bit smaller piece of heat shrink which will fit over this tapered end. We'll slide that up over there, and we're going to heat that down. Okay. Alright, now we're going to take a drill bit just big enough to fit through the screw hole in this thing. We don't want to mess up our splines. I'm going to lay it on a block of wood. I think that's the right one. Nope, here I need this bigger one. Okay, let's get this on here. Now, take your razor knife, scrape any flash off of there again. No, careful not to cut your heat shrink. Now that, my friend, is as solid as a rock, and it's plastic, and it's almost like a servo horn. So now what we're going to do, go back to our smaller drill bit, and lay it on our wood and just center this right out toward the end. Drill a hole in it. Now, if you will notice, what I did on here, I had to go back and kind of revamp my servo tray. On this side, I put some 1/4 inch hardwood square stock in here to offset this one from the other one. I also turned my quick connect pointing out, and then when I do this one, get it on here, when I do this one, uh-oh, I'm going to have a problem. It's going to hit my other servo. Gosh darn it. It clears out here. Alright, I'm going to have to go back to the drawing board and do a little revamping here and see what I can come up with. I'm going to have to trim that off just a tiny bit, and hopefully I still have enough length that it'll clear. I'll be right back. Okay, I trimmed this one off just a little bit. I think I'll still have enough length because this one was actually a little too long. I was able to sub-trim my travel adjustment back a little bit, so hopefully this being slightly shorter, I'll still have enough room for that door to open all the way. That still leaves plenty of thickness for your screw to tighten down on your servo. Tightens down good and snug, so well, let's plug these in and make sure I've got them in the right spot. Alright, my right one goes to my gear channel. My left one goes to my aux 1, which I transferred over to my flap switch. I actually piggybacked my gear to my flap. It wouldn't let me transfer flap to gear, but it'd let me go gear to flap, so I'm using my flap switch, which is a 3-position, but just flip it all the way. Okay, turn the radio on, plug the battery in. Alright, now, okay, those clear each other just fine. I've got one offset to the front, one offset to the back, so they'll clear each other. And I am going to have to probably do a little fine-tuning on the travel adjustment, but we'll wait till we get it installed and hooked up to the linkage and see what it does. But anyway, there's a really easy way to make your servo extensions longer if you don't have access to some kind of thin plastic. These little short popsicle sticks. That's not one of them, but I've got these kind. I've got the little bit wider ones. Those also work. The wider ones work well. I've used those before, but these little plastic deals, there again, I thank my wife big time for finding these. She got me a whole big old bag of them for like $1. I bet there's probably 600 or 700 of them in there, so I've got mixing sticks forever, and plus I'll probably save a bunch of them just to do this right here, because you never know when you're going to need a long arm. So, alright, we'll be back in a minute. Okay guys, got her all hooked up. I did have enough slack. There's the inside of the working mechanism. Seems to be working fine. And here is the outside of the working mechanism. Awesome. Be able to drop a lot of candy with that. It worked very smooth. Okay, we're done with that. Now I gotta put the rest of the electronics in it for the just 2 servos is all I like in here, and I gotta cover the wing, the stab, and the rudder, and we'll get it mounted. I should get it done here in just a couple hours, so I'll be back when I get that part done.